All right. Hey, everyone. It is Toni Will. I am excited. And if you listen to my podcast regularly, you're probably like Toni, get a thesaurus and think of a different word other than excited, because I always am with my podcast guests, and this guest is no exception. So let me tell you what you're listening to first. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women and the individuals in their lives who are lifting them up. You will hear from all kinds of super cool people in my life, and they're going to share their stories to inspire others to support the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. This is what I'm passionate about, breaking down barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Toni Will Coaching, or you happen to be in my family and friends circle. My guest today falls into a lot of categories that wasn't even listed here, but let me tell you all about Kerry Keefer Fischer. She was born and raised in Battle Creek, Michigan, but she's lived in Kalamazoo, Portage and Mattawan her entire adult life. She loves to be active, doing just about anything: fitness, travel, real estate, and activities around her church. She's married and has a daughter, currently residing and working. Her daughter is currently working as a chiropractor in Chicago. In Kerry's 20s, she worked at Pharmacia Upjohn, which is now Pfizer, in Kalamazoo, as a project coordinator until her position was transferred out of state, then chose to go after her passion in health and fitness and served as a general manager for a local fitness club. Then in 2007, her best friend of over 30 years and herself started their own company where we buy and sell investment properties. Their strategy has been to lease options, flips, and rentals, long and short term, of both single unit and multi-unit properties. Today, they have over 40 rental doors, which is so cool. Exposure to the world of real estate made her realize this is where her passion lay. With extensive experience in business management, marketing, and selling, and with a love of real estate, Kerry became a realtor in 2011 at the age of 38. And it was a natural career choice and a way of life for her. In 2017, she started a real estate team to ensure she could keep up with the changing demands in the marketplace, and went on to acquire her associate broker's license. And I will tell you, Kerry does fit into many categories in my life, beyond friend, but one of which is my realtor. So she's a fabulous realtor. Kerry, welcome.
Thank you, Toni. It's an absolute pleasure.
It is a pleasure. And I love podcasting for so many reasons, but one of the best things about it is when I read bios, which I know for my guests is really weird because I read it live and you get to kind of have your life flash before your eyes. But I learned,
write all that.
but I learned things I didn't know about you. And I've known you for 20 years now, believe it or not.
Yes, you have.
And the reason I know that is because Landon's 21.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, but I didn't know you worked at Pfizer.
Yeah, well, back in the day, it wasn't Pfizer. It was Pharmacia Upjohn.
Yeah, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So I loved learning that, but I didn't let the cat out of the bag, even though it was in your bio. I saw this, but the first question I always ask all my guests is, where did we meet? And you've known me for 20 years, so you might be one of the podcast guests thus far that's known me the longest. So how did we meet?
I love that. Well, we were both just so young and fresh and enthusiastic about health and fitness, right? So SWAT Fitness Club, which is interesting because when I'm out and about, I see people and I'm like, I know your face. What's your name, right? Because you just come in contact with so many people. But yes, back in the days of SWAT.
Yes, we met. You were the general manager, and this is how I remember meeting you. I remember, I don't know, I had just had Landon, and I was on this mission to lose weight, and I'd been working out in my basement doing Les Mills programs. And I had this portable DVD player, and I said, we have to have these. I think maybe Marta was part of that conversation.
Yes, I love Les Mills.
Yeah. And I remember saying, we have to have these. And you were probably like, who is this girl? And I was so passionate about it. And you were like, yes. And we launched Les Mills.
Can you believe I still subscribe to Les Mills On Demand, and I still do Body Combat in my house today?
I do too, by the way.
Love it.
I still have all my DVDs from the years of teaching, and they just mean so much to me. And even though I work out at Orange Theory too, but I stream when I travel, and I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, interestingly, even though being a GM at the fitness club, like I am all about time savers and efficiencies. And I generally don't go to the gym ever. I work out in my own house.
Yeah.
So that's really my thing.
I think I'm about ready to head back to that because I need efficiencies as well. And that's what I don't think efficiencies is a core value, but I'm going to add it as one for you and I.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you think about your time and what your time is worth, right? There's only so many minutes in a day, and there's so many tasks and distractions, and it's like anything you can do to shave the 20-minute drive there and then the 20-minute back, right? It's like that right there is a 40-minute workout. So,
100%. Okay, so you were on my short list. Well, it's become a long list of people I want on the podcast, but I want to talk specifically about because I'm going to have this podcast air probably next week, which generally it takes me a couple months because the Empower Her conference is coming up a week from tomorrow. And I shot out some emails right after Christmas, and I said, and I mean, I was like, I'm going to reach out to there were 5 people on my list, and you were one of them. And right away, you email me back, and you're like, yeah, I'll sponsor it. And I was just like, I just was so just grateful for that, and just like that I have people in my life like this. So tell me why the conference spoke to you, and just women leadership, women business owners, like what this conference stands for, and why you were so eager to jump on board.
yeah, I am a huge supporter. I think that it's tough. It's tough in this world to accomplish or achieve or just do things that are maybe a little different than what other people are doing, right? And to see what you chose to do and stick your neck out there to say, okay, I'm going to do something that is hopefully going to be impactful to people's lives. Like, how could I do that, right? Like, I'm not having a conference, but I can support you in your endeavor. And so I love that. I love that you did that. I wanted to support you. I'm probably one of those people that if a Girl Scout came up to me and knocked on my door, I'd be like, yes, I will buy your cookies. Thank you for having the guts to ask,
Mhm.
because that's hard. It is hard to ask other people to support you. So kudos to you for asking, because that's a huge risk, right?
Yeah, it is.
So
And I as a salesperson myself, I'm the same way. And as a matter of fact, I talk about sales isn't a dirty word, right? Because so many people feel like it's kind of icky, but it's not, because it's all about courage, and courage doesn't feel good, but it builds confidence. And you know what feels good? Confidence. So,
absolutely. I think the more you live outside of your comfort zone, I think the more comfortable being outside of your comfort zone becomes,
100%.
right?
I think that's where I live permanently.
Yeah, right. Every day, right? You wake up, you're like, oh gosh, what do I have to endure today? You know.
Yeah. And so in your bio, you talk about this because I remember when you made the jump to real estate,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
specifically put in there you were 38 years old. So you were knocking on the door of 40 and you were changing careers.
Yeah.
And real estate is not an easy endeavor, right? It's not. So take me back to that time in your life and what that felt like, and just walk me through well, it's been what, 14 years now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've watched your team grow. I mean, it's just been really cool to see you be so successful in Kalamazoo in real estate. So take me back to that 38-year-old Carrie and walk me through to now.
Yeah. So actually, the journey kind of started in 2008. So obviously, you knew my life at the fitness club, right? And my life was absorbed by the fitness club. And that comes with being a super achiever, right? Every action, every thought is wrapped into, you pour your heart into what you do for a living per se. And so with that, with some changes, obviously, that took place around the ownership at the club, I felt a little violated from the perspective that, wow, I just poured my heart and soul into something and it just got taken away from me. I was still there, right? But that was taken from me, from like, that was my baby, and I helped grow that place. And so, thinking like, what's next for me? Where do I want to go with what I did? Because I never got my college degree, which is a whole nother subject, right? I did 2.5 years and didn't do that. And so I feel like I fought in my 20s and 30s trying to prove something to my parents, and maybe my family and people around me, like, okay, you know what? Yep, I chose not to do that. And now I'm going to fight super hard to make sure that I could prove that I didn't need to have it. So, thinking when that happened, I was like, wow, what can I do that I absolutely would love and enjoy? And I remember driving downtown and I heard a Rich Dad Poor Dad advertisement on the radio. It says, come to our free seminar. So I called my girlfriend, my girlfriend Lori's always my my go-to with all the craziness in my life ever since kindergarten. I feel like if I ever got in trouble, I was always with Lori. I'm like, Lori, I want you to go to the seminar with me. And she's always like, sure, let's do it, which she still does to this day. So you'll see her next weekend.
I'm going to see her. I see her on the list.
Yes, you are. So she's always my partner in crime. And so her and I went to this Rich Dad Poor Dad class, and we're like, oh my gosh, we could do this. We could invest in real estate together. And so, then of course they pushed, come to this next weekend seminar. And we're like, okay, that one's actually going to cost us now. So we had to spend money to go to this weekend conference. We did it. And when we got to the weekend conference, we're like, hey, spend money now to take these classes. And we're both looking at each other like, oh my gosh, we're so excited about this, but now we've got to come up with some money. So I think that first investment was going to cost us $8,000. And reading reviews online, it's like, okay, this is a scam. Don't take this. They're going to, and we're like, you know what though? That's like with anything in life. There are going to be people out there, the naysayers, you can't do it. There's always negativity in anything, but it's kind of like, okay, is there a system in a process that I could jump into and utilize? And obviously it works for some people. So her and I did it, and we started buying, and thank God for the timing around it. It was 2008. So we started doing our first investment properties, and we started doing 3 to 4 a year starting in 2008, where we did single family homes and did lease options. And that just kind of started snowballing. And we worked with a realtor at the time. And I'm like, gosh, I love this. So that's why I chose in 2011. I'm like, okay, things kept getting more and more heated at the gym. And so I made the jump to get my license. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. And so from there, it was really, I was functioning as a single mom at that time. And, when you're coming from that place of, I got to support my kiddo and pay the bills. And so jumping into a full commission kind of career, from that perspective, and I didn't have a ton of money saved up. So it was like, I'm doing this because it was a sink or swim, right? There wasn't I'm going to try it. Let's just see how it goes. It was, how do people make it happen? How do they do it? That's what I need to emulate. That's what I need to model and go after, because it had to work. I didn't have a choice at that point. Like, I didn't have a college degree to fall back on. And I loved what I did, or I loved what I was doing. So that was it. It was like, run with it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and again, I'm learning new things about you. In that, what a great story. Because I was going to say, the timing of that was like, it's kind of like, there's all these cliche sayings, right, about timing in life, and all, nothing is put in front of you at a time when you're not supposed. I don't know, whatever the sayings are, but truly, that's a perfect example of it. The real estate market, all the market was a shit. It was a mess, but what a great time to buy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even through, I think you can make anything work if you're adapting to the market, right? And so even, we've continued buying. Her and I just picked up a 20 unit this past year, and, is now the right time to buy? Well, it depends on how you're buying it, right? So, and again, that was another thing that just, it was like God handed it to us on a platter and said, girls, hey, here's a seller that is willing to sell. They called me, and they brought us a deal we couldn't refuse with seller financing at 5.5% interest rate with no payments or interest for 6 months to help us get established. It was just, it was God's way of saying, okay, you know what, you're taking the next step, right? Because we were at 26 units, I think, or 20 some units in our portfolio, and we're like, oh my gosh, can we do this? This is a lot, but it was like, okay, we can do this. And for me, not coming from some big corporate job with this enormous pension, I'm trying to do those things to think about my future and our retirement, and so yeah, things. But you also have to be open to opportunities, right? Open to taking the call, open to taking a little bit of risk. And, Lori's been that girlfriend with me that we're like, okay, because we have each other. Again, it comes back to that women's support, which I have so many women in my life and support me in all different areas and seasons. But she's just that one, with the business side of it, that we've always kind of been that's risk-taking support structure for each other.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I've been writing down all kinds of questions that I have. I send you questions. I send all my podcast questions. I ask one, and then I go off on, because there's so many interesting
Right.
things. Like, I have the best people of my life. So I need to know this. So clearly you're a collaborator. And I have so much respect for women who collaborate with other women. And it sounds to me like it comes very naturally to you. I have to work on it. So I want to learn from you right now. How do you and Lori collaborate? You've been friends since kindergarten.
Yeah.
Have you run into hiccups? How does that dynamic work? And what advice would you give to someone like me or anyone listening that wants to collaborate with another woman? I'm eager to learn what you have to say because you two clearly have a winning combination.
You know, I truly believe, I mean, at my foundation, at my core, right, I am trying to live in God's design for my life. And part of that is following this Christ-like love for other people. And I think when you can come at every situation and every person from a place of love, and for Lori and I love her like a sister. Like I would never want to do anything that would be damaging to her. And I've done and said things, and like I have to allow her the space to come to me and confront me about those things as well. I have to be able to confront her about things. And it's also recognizing, and just being open and forgiving and gracious and, all the things that it takes in any relationship, I think, whether you're going to work with them, whether they're my staff or people on the team or clients, right? I think that it all comes from that place of allowing others to be who they are and being okay with that. And just giving them the grace, right? Like I'm reading a book called Let Them, which is a whole nother question I'm sure you're going to ask, right? But I that book really resonates with me, and because I always think that we women tend to overthink so many things, including what other people say or think or how they feel about us. And, it's like, let other people just be and do themselves. And you control you control your behavior. And so don't let other people affect what you think, say, and do, right? Protect this, like be empowered, right?
Yes, exactly. Let Them is by Mel Robbins, a very
Love
popular
it.
book right now. It's on my list to read.
Love
I
it.
listen to her podcast periodically, depending on the topics. And I love her like just style and a way of approaching things and her sense of humor. And you can just tell she's, down to earth and, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I've heard great things about the book.
Mhm.
Um, so
I
speaking,
will say, like, I read a lot of books, or I should say, I start a lot of books. If you tell me about a good book, I'm probably going to buy it, and then I'm going to open it, read a chapter, and I might say, is this serving me in my life or not right now? And if it's not, it goes back on the shelf until it will.
yeah,
And maybe 25% of them will I actually finish.
that's great advice though, because I was going to ask, so now I know what you're reading, but that's because there are times where someone will say, "Oh, you should read this book," and then I'm like, "Oh, I think I have it," and then it's the right time, but I've had it on my bedside table for 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely. And so many people feel like, okay, I've started it. I have to finish it. I just have to finish this thing. It's like, you don't, no, you don't. If it's
No,
not serving you right now, there's too many other things to put your energy into. Like, go for the things that are going to serve you right now.
yeah, that is such great advice because I do have a book on my bedside table that I've been trying to read, and it's just, and I very rarely don't finish a book, so it's like this weird badge of honor for who? No one. It's in my own freaking head. So now I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to, because Josh is even like, Tony, why are you still reading that? I'm like, well, I'm committed. He goes,
No.
okay. So I'm going to give up. I'm going to say,
Tony,
Kim,
I give you permission to put the book on the shelf until it serves you.
thank you. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. So you've been successful in sales as a woman, and as a GM of SWAT, you were selling there too. I mean, and you were managing people. But I want to talk about the real estate side. You helped Josh and I buy 2 homes together. You sold one of my homes prior to that. I mean, so we've worked with you a lot, and I love your style of selling because it doesn't feel like you're selling. And so I want to talk about how would you talk about your style of selling? How would you describe that?
Well, how would you describe it?
You are fact based, like you always come with the facts, and you are very good at not getting wrapped up in the emotions of the buyer or the seller, and you're really good at listening to what we're looking for, and then like getting us back on track to what we want. And especially Josh and I mean, for those of you who haven't met my husband, he's a character. And so am I.
Just a little.
Just a little. So you put Toni and Josh together, and poor Kerry, and but you have this ability to like. It's kind of like you're a chameleon in a way, but in a really great way. So I don't know. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think as with any good real estate agent, right? I mean, it really truly comes down to everybody's personality is so different and their needs are so different. And I think if you come at it from this perspective of, learning the person and what their needs are, right? I think it's coming from a place of curiosity of, okay, tell me more, tell me what, when you're talking to people, you get a good feel for what's important for them and what their personality's like. Do they just want the stats and facts or do they need a hug or, it's who are they and what do they need at any given time and space. But really the real estate transaction, I mean, it's a transaction that for most people, it's the most expensive transaction that they're going to have in their life. And for most people, the equity in their home is probably their biggest, biggest equity, their biggest source of funds for their future. So I think taking that pretty serious and trying to keep emotions out of it because it truly, people tend to make poor decisions when they're emotional, So I always say, I don't know how we managed it when we did your transactions, but it's, usually it's like, okay, you might need to sleep on this, and I usually will guide people to sleep on things if they can, if the market and if the offer allows for somebody to sleep on it. Just because by the time you sleep on it, your emotions tend to, wane. You just needed the rest to then start thinking more clearly to make those good decisions. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when we bought our house now, it was, it was a big leap for Josh and I because we really wanted to be on a lake and uh, to find the property we did. And I'll never forget that day we drove out there because there was so much snow and, and we love it out there, like to find almost 2 acres on a lake and a pole barn and all the things. And it was, we'd only lived in the house she sold us before for 2.5 years. So there was just a lot, right? It was a lot. Like we were like, are we really doing this? And
Yeah.
so it was, and you were so great at navigating that. And just a fun little fact at closing, we found out right after we closed that Josh had COVID and we were moving and it was the coldest day of the year and it was just a shit show. But Kerry was a pro and it was, you always made it so easy. And we're going to continue to do more business together after, this with, as I always recommend you to anyone who asks.
I
So,
appreciate that.
yeah. Okay.
You know what I remember about one of our real estate transactions?
What?
You were my guinea pig. Actually, Josh was in COVID. Remember, we attempted, you were my first attempt at doing a virtual open house. I'm like, we are going to hold this house open. We've got to get this house sold. And we couldn't come to the house. So I'm like, okay, I literally spent probably 5-6 hours researching how to go live on Facebook from Zoom and I totally wrote up all these instructions for Josh. I'm like, okay, Josh, go out, stand in front of the house. This is what I need you to do. You remember that?
I do. And now that you bring me back, because we had just put our house, well, it was my ex-husband and I's house, and you knew my ex-husband as well, on the market. And Josh and I were, like I got the house in the divorce. And we just put it up and then COVID hit. Remember we were getting the walls painted because you're like, Toni, you really should get the wall. And I'm like, okay. And I got carpet and did all this. And then everything shut down. And I remember talking to you and I was like, what are we doing? You're like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, nobody knew.
Right. I'm like,
And
let's
I was
do it.
like,
Let's figure it out.
You did. You are completely, and you and I are cut from the same cloth in that. Like, we don't know how, but we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. And that's, yeah. If you ask me a question, I may not always know the answer, but I'm going to do my darndest to get you an answer.
And you always do.
Right.
And so this is another thing about real estate. And I want to ask you about this because there are times when we were texting and not in the middle of the night, but you work crazy hours. So how do you balance all of that? And I know Josh and I are your only clients. So you got like 10 of us or 20 of us and your team. How do you balance all that?
At this season in my life, it's a little easier now because I'm an empty nester, right? But and some people are better at, okay, my phone is off from 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And really, mine isn't. It probably could or should be. But, I am available most waking hours and most days, but I think I've done a good job of trying to structure in, okay, on Sunday mornings if I'm at church, obviously my phone is off in my purse. If I'm, and I'll tell people that, or if I'm going to go to, like this Friday, I'm going to go see my daughter in Chicago. So I definitely will structure in my time away to turn my brain off for a little bit, even though it's still available for you. And then having and bringing on a team of people to support me so that the texts and the calls that I get are directly to my clients. I'm generally not having to work too much with lenders or title companies too much. So I get to just really focus on the core activities that are important for me to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Which is really helpful.
Yeah. Because you're so responsive and communicative. And I'm always like, this poor woman never gets a rest.
Yeah, but I will say, it's funny because, I work with another life coach also, which, they always talk about the wheel of life and how, all of the areas, your finances, your emotions, your marriage, your family, your spirituality, your fitness. And so I'm always thinking, at the start of every week or the start of every month, like, how am I doing in that? Where do I need to focus time? How can I block stuff in my schedule? And I have a pretty consistent daily routine, but I think that I think when you're really going to succeed at something like you with this conference, right? I mean, your life is going to be out of balance for the next couple weeks. I mean, it just is, right? To really pull off something of significance like that. And I think that's okay, right? It's okay to think about, it's all right if my life's going to get out of balance for a couple weeks, right? But then how can I reel it back in after that?
Yes.
And I think some people, that workaholic seems like a bad word, which I think it can be if that's your, if you're just focused on work 100% of your life and you're not focused on your health or your family. But yeah, it's definitely difficult.
I love that you work with a life coach because, in addition to my day job, I'm a lifestyle coach. That's how I coined it. I started Mindfulness Elevated 4 years ago, and then I expanded to Toni Will Coaching for professional development coaching. I love that, and I didn't know this about you, that you had a life coach. So tell me what made you invest in that for yourself, because I have a coach as well for me, because I think coaches need coaches too. So what made you invest in that for yourself?
I honestly, I think some of that, that striving for more education came from not finishing my college degree.
Mhm.
I think that I actually did Amway for 7 years. And in
Wow.
the Amway world, you are constantly focused on books, tapes, and functions, right? Constantly learning.
Hmm.
And all of the books that I read at that time, right? A lot of the Anthony Robbins, No Vincent Peale, and just all of these, tremendous books that help you learn how to shape your thought process. Well, along those lines, it's always like you've got to be constantly learning and educating yourself, right? Otherwise, there's just this pattern of a slow death, right? If you're not learning, you're dying, kind of thing. And then I also feel that if by reading and learning from other people, it kind of helps take you to the next level. Otherwise, you get kind of stuck in your own patterns and stuck in your own way. And so at a very early age, I've always been really open to working with coaches. So I have real estate coaches. I coach with the Tom Ferry World. And then on the life coach side, my life coach is somebody that I've worked with. I've actually had him come in and talk to the team. And he's also been in the world of pastoring. So he's great on the spirituality side of things for me, also helping me to grow in that matter. And then, of course, my pastor from church. It's always just learning and growing and being coached and coachable, I think is super critical.
I agree. I think being coachable is one of, I think, I don't know that it's talked about enough, about the power of it. Because really, if you're not coachable, you're holding yourself back from so many things, right? If you just always think you're right, or, I mean, we all are judgmental in some way, shape, or form. We have to be judgmental at times of certain situations or discerning, but
Right.
to step back and have someone look at your life, because we're living it, right? And so the coach can talk about stripping emotion out. strip the emotion out to see what you don't and like reflect that back, the power of that and your
Absolutely.
willingness to accept that to help you become a better person. I
Oh,
love,
absolutely. Even working with just counselors, I think the whole psychology or psychiatrist and just, seeing a counselor it's almost in some instances has been looked down upon, like, okay, you've got mental issues, but okay, let's be honest, we all have mental issues. So I think we all need help to some extent, right? So getting that extra help, I think, even if it's just for a short season of life, it's for one session or a lifetime with a specific person, whatever it is, like if you need the help, get the help.
exactly. Okay, I want to switch gears because this is very exciting. When I saw this on social media on your pages, I was like, I called Josh right away. You had a realtor that was on a House Hunters episode in Kalamazoo. And we are big House Hunters fans. Although I would say we are very judgmental of everyone on House Hunters. We think we should be on House Hunters. Could you imagine Josh and I on House Hunters?
Oh, I love that.
But I thought that was so cool, Carrie.
Uh,
Like that you so talk, can you give me a little behind the scenes tea on this? Like how number one, how did you get like do you apply for this? And then is it true, and I don't know if you can tell me this or not, but is it true that the house is already sold and like the other two houses are like they're looking at them? I'm using air quotes if you're listening to me. So
Yeah, absolutely. So Michelle is my cousin. She's also on my team, and I'm super proud of her. She's so awesome. And she's also one of my women, my support structure. So Michelle's clients actually, so it starts with the clients.
okay.
So they actually applied to the show and submitted their story. And then when their story was chosen, she could include her real estate agent. So Michelle, who does not love videos, she's like, "Oh my gosh, can I do this?" And I'm like, "You have to. You're gonna turn your clients over to somebody else, right?" So she did it. I'm so proud of her. She did awesome. And yeah, so I know that there are things that they're not supposed to share, and things that maybe I know that I'm not supposed to share. But clearly, when the episode's done, they're in the house, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I'll say about that.
I, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but and I appreciate you holding true to your word with HGTV. So, but I saw that and I was like, that is so cool. And you continue, like, tell me what you're doing now. You're like, because you're not afraid of the camera like me. Like, I'll go on camera, I don't care.
Right.
So what is the project you're working on now? Because I see it on social media, but I'm like, I gotta
Yep.
ask Carrie about this.
Yep. So, I don't know if you do this thing where you have words every year. Well,
Yes,
my
I do.
word for 2025 is connections. And, I feel like the more I get further along in my leadership of the team and in ways that I can be a leader in our community, an opportunity was presented with American Dream TV. And American Dream TV has been around for years, probably a decade. And they have real estate agents or mortgage brokers in other markets around the United States. And it's really people that can just speak to what the lifestyle or cultural real estate's like in that area. So as the real estate voice, I get to look and say, okay, what in our community really showcases who we are? So whether somebody's looking at the Kalamazoo Portage area and they want to know more about who we are and what we offer, and it's just or just drawing attention to certain aspects of the community for our locals. And so I was approached just back, gosh, I think it was just November with the opportunity. And if it was a different season in my life, I don't know that I would have jumped on, but it really resonated. Like, I'm like, this is me. This is that time I'm ready to do this and really just connect with more people in our community. And so far, it's been a great opportunity. I mean, we did our first. The first thing I wanted to focus on was the downtown Kalamazoo Mall area, just because there's so much going on downtown, and it's so intimidating sometimes to go down there, whether it be because of parking or a multitude of different things. But so Lauren Lassiter with Colors and Cocktails, and I know Tani Thompson Murphy from Aroma Labs. I mean, some of those businesses right down there, it's like you can, you're not just going down there to shop, right? You're going down there to have experiences. And so that was my first show, which was so cool. I'm so grateful for them for allowing me to, work with them first. And they're women-owned businesses, super proud, doing big things. So shout out and kudos to them. And then the next one is going to be the Kalamazoo Promise. And so I think thousands of lives have been impacted by that. And actually, that idea came to me from my brother-in-law. He goes, "You really need to speak to that because it's he knows of people that have been impacted by that." So that'll be next. So yeah, I'm always going to be open to, what are those stories in our community that really show who we are as a
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, another place where we align because I absolutely, being a GM of the only professional hockey team in Kalamazoo for the past 10 years, community is just so important to me. It always has been because I
Oh,
love
don't worry, Tony. You're on my list.
oh, oh, I'm not pitching
We just haven't
myself.
talked about it yet.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, that's cool. Yeah, you ask. I mean, yeah, I'm in. I think that'd be awesome. But I
Love
love
it. Yep.
the focus on the promise, women-owned businesses. I met with Aroma Labs, a little too close to empower her because I wanted to get her on board. But
Yeah.
if I do the conference next year, how cool would that be to have that experience at the conference? So
Oh, so fun. So fun.
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities, but okay. So we talked House Hunters, we talked American Dream TV. I want to know, and you've talked about some of them throughout. We got about I don't know, a little less than 10 minutes left, but I want to know who the women in your life are that have made Kerry Kerry.
You know, I will say I'm pretty blessed to have a family that, my parents are still married, still together, and my mom was always that good cheerleader for me. So she really gave me a good foundation to always be learning and growing. And of course, I have a sister that's just a rock. She's everybody's go-to if they need, just care. She's such a caring person. And then those seasons of life, again, bring you different friendships. I have girlfriends that I've made that, I could call them tomorrow and I haven't seen them in years, and in a heartbeat, they'd do anything for you. And of course I have, a bestie, Jill. She'll travel anywhere with me, do anything with me. And of course my cousin, I know I mentioned her. Those people are my tight circle. And of course, Lori I've mentioned, but they're just that circle. And then of course, obviously I can't fail to mention my daughter because, it's, I look at my daughter and I see what she's achieving, what she's doing, and I'm so proud. I'm like, okay, you know what? I may have been a single mom, and there may be things I've even brought up to her that, I'm like, some of the things maybe you learned from me might not have been so great, but I'm glad we can have those conversations. But you spend so much of your life trying to, put food on the table and just being that example for your kids and for my daughter specifically, because I just have one kid, that, she keeps me going.
Yeah.
I think my world when she graduated from high school, and I can't talk about this and not get emotional. I don't know why, even still to this day.
Yeah.
And when she graduated from high school in 2017, my life was her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when she graduated and moved, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh.
It's okay. Listen. I've been a mess for the last 3 weeks.
Oh, every time I talk about it. So, and that's when I started my team. I'm like, okay, I need people to help. I need people to sink my time and my energy into because, like, she was my world, and she still is.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to find that thing before she graduated. I had to find the thing that I could sink my heart into because I knew that I was going to have a huge gap. And I ended up having, I don't know if you've ever heard of Takotsubo, but it is what they call broken heart syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so it presents itself like a heart attack. And I had that episode that summer that she graduated. And I've since had it one other time, and it's very much stress induced. So be mindful of that. But it's, filling the void and making sure that you're pre-thinking those things that might cause stress in your life so you can adapt before they happen, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're such a good mom, and your daughter is. When I see pictures of you on Facebook, she looks just like you, and I know what that means because because Chloe looks just like me, and there's something like I feel really proud of that, and
Right.
you can tell she's mine,
Oh
and
yeah.
and Ariel is the same way for you, like she's yours, and yeah, I 100% can relate. And there's nothing like that mother-daughter bond, um, that nothing will change that no matter where these girls go in their
Right.
lives.
No,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I just love it. So moving. Um, Okay. I want to know one more question, then wherever people can find you, we'll get to that in a minute. Because if you live in the area, Kerry and her team need to be your real estate team. So, but beyond that, I want to know, what have you changed your mind about lately? And it can be anything small to big, but this is one of the questions in my list because it's fun, like some of the answers I get. So what have you changed your mind about?
You know, I mean, honestly, it's the thought that I have to be a super achiever. You know, and I think, like I mentioned, the Taketsubo, the what appeared as though a heart attack twice in my life, and you know, when it happened the last time, and you know, my cousin's rushing me to the hospital, and you know, my husband's told, you know, tell your wife you love her. You know, I mean, it's just scary, scary stuff. And I think those health things happen, and they make you rethink your life and what it's, you know, what's your purpose, and are you really truly doing what God's designed you to do, and are you in the right space and with the right people, and I'm such an overachiever, and it always is about productivity and time efficiencies, right? But to really sit back and sit in the moment and be present, and really reflect on life, and are you really, is it really that important?
Yeah.
What are you focused on?
Yeah. No, I'm working on that myself because
Good.
when the big stuff hits in life, it's like, I mean, like really the family stuff is what's really important, and being there for moments big to small, because I mean, time is fleeting and things go by fast. And
Absolutely.
so, Carrie, this has been just so you've given so much wisdom to my audience, and thank you for taking the time to do this with me and for being patient enough to be Josh and I's realtor many times over.
I love you. Well, thank
I
you.
love you too. And now she's going to do it with my dad and I. So buckle your seatbelt, sister, because
Uh,
you add Roger to the mix, and now you got three characters. So yeah,
love it.
it's gonna be fun. So where can people find you, Carrie? I mean, there's the House Hunters episode, which is on HGTV. So and Michelle's actually the
That's
agent.
Michelle. Yep.
But where else can people connect with you or your real estate team or anything you're working on?
I mean, Google.
You're a Googler.
Google my name. I will show up. And if I don't, that's too bad. But you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, more so Facebook. But I'm not as social as I could be. But you'll find me very easily.
And you're going to be at Empower Her next
I will be. Yes,
Friday
I'm
and
so
Saturday.
excited and so happy for you and the girls that are presenting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited too. It's going to be I hopefully as transformational as I imagine it to be. And also
Absolutely.
everything I want a conference to be, it's like the anti-conference, because that's how I roll. You know, it's like
Yep.
learning and connecting and teaching and growing, but it's not like stuffy. You know, it's like it's a mix of soft seating, and it's like and regular tables, and we're going to have sound therapy in there, and we're going to have, but it's also going to be like cool music and a good vibe. And you know, it's not like a traditional like, you know, conference. So
I love
I,
it. I love it. I'm looking forward to it.
well, thank you for coming on. If anyone wants to connect with me, I'm the same as Carrie. Just Google me. I'm not hard to find.
Right.
kwings.com, ToniWillCoaching.com, mindfulnesselevated.com. I'm only on 3 social media platforms because I don't do a couple of the others, but LinkedIn and Facebook, Toni Lantini Will, and Instagram at I'm Toni Will. And until next time.
Yay.